Are you thinking about getting an Alpinestars Supertech R10, but just had a couple of questions on whether or not it's going to be worth the buy? Well, I am going to give you the answers to some of the questions that I've gotten online about this helmet after having it for about a year now. And in that year, I have ridden a ton on the street. I've also taken this out to track, and I am going to answer the questions that you might have. So howdy all crankers, my name is Jeff, you are watching TrashWerks, and today we are going to be going over some of the common questions I've gotten about this Alpinestars Supertech R10 after a year of ownership. The most asked question is it a good street helmet? I think there's no real contention about whether it's a good track helmet. Alpinestars makes quality gear and they spent a lot of time in racing, so it's no surprise that it works well on the track. But a lot of people are thinking about, is this good for putting around on the street as opposed to ripping it out at the track? And the short answer is, surprisingly, yes. It works pretty well on the street. Probably the biggest concern that most people have is how it handles wind. And it is a track-focused helmet, so it is going to be more windy than a touring-focused helmet. But with that in mind, compared to other track-focused helmets that I've worn on the street and just at higher speeds on my Kawasaki Z900 naked bike, this is one of the quietest helmets that I've worn in terms of track helmets. Now, it's not something that I would wear on a cross-country road trip, but by all means, it is pretty darn quiet. There's no real wind hitting my ears like it usually does. A lot of that just gets vented out the back, and coincidentally, that means that I get a lot better hearing for just standard road noises, so I can hear what's going on around me a lot better than I can in other helmets. Beyond that, for the street, it's actually really good when it comes to the field of view, and you can actually adjust how you see in terms of the vertical field of view. You can adjust it to be more up or more down depending on the crown positioning. And I like that aspect about it, so that it's a pretty quick change too. It doesn't take too long to swap over, and it makes it so that if you're going to the track and you need to be tucked and looking up through the brow, you can change it to that. Whereas if you are going to be staying on the street and more upright and you need to be able to have more downward visibility to, let's say, see your dash, you can keep it that way as well. It's also exceptionally lightweight. I don't know how heavy it is exactly. I'll put that number up on screen, but I've worn it for hours and hours, and I have not felt any kind of neck fatigue with this helmet. It is surprisingly light. You can whip it back and forth all that you need to. Probably one of the things that makes this one of my favorite helmets for the street and for the track is how well you can vent air in. So there are 11 points of ventilation on this helmet, but more importantly, one of the best features about it is if we look right here on the center of the chin, there's going to be a little opening for a rubber guard there. You can actually remove that rubber guard entirely, and it lets so much more air into the helmet, which, if you don't know, in terms of heat and feeling hot, I think one of the biggest factors to that on a bike is going to actually be feeling stuffy in the helmet itself. Because if you think about it, if you go out to, let's say, the beach, it's not going to be too bad, but think about the same experience, being at the beach, a bare minimum of clothes, you put a helmet on and all of a sudden you feel so much more stuffy, you feel so much more hot and sweaty. And so by opening up that chin vent and letting so much more air in, it makes you so much more comfortable, and you get more air to your nostrils and your mouth, which helps with riding and just, general overall cognitive function. Now, another question that I get a lot is, how dark is the visor? And it's hard to explain that. I don't have the instrumentation to tell you exactly, but this is the darker visor, and I think it fits a really good medium point when it comes to visors. It gets really bright and sunny out here in Florida, and I've never felt like this visor isn't enough for that. I can see out in the day all that I need to. I don't ever feel like it's too bright out and I have to squint or anything like that. Obviously, I'm not going to stare into the sun with it. And one of the things that I like about it is when it comes nighttime, let's say if I get caught out riding after the sun starts to set, I can still keep this visor on. I have decent night visibility with this visor, as opposed to some other visors that I've had where if I'm out at night, I'm basically riding with my visor up because I can't see anything. This one, you actually do get a decent amount of night visibility out of, which I like. It's just convenient and something that I appreciate. And that's just a personal preference. I know some people like them to be darker just for whatever reasons they have. Another question that I've gotten a lot is, how does the actual helmet fit? How have the pads broken in? How long did it take for them to break in? When I first got the helmet, it was a little tight, as a new helmet should be, and it took maybe 3 or 4 rides for the pads to break in. I wasn't keeping track, and 1 year later, with I don't know how many more hours or miles on the helmet still fits snugly. It is not tight, it is snug, and I don't feel it getting any looser, so it's at a very good point for me where I feel secure in the helmet. I feel like it's going to stay on well, but I do not feel like it is tight or uncomfortable. Now, another question that I did get a lot is, what don't I like about the helmet? And there's really not much. I'd say probably the worst thing is the chin curtain that comes with the helmet. It comes with a chin spoiler and a chin curtain. You can't use both at the same time, and the chin curtain is basically useless. However, something that you can do to get around that is the chin curtain for the Shoei X14 is not that expensive. I think it's like under 20 bucks. It's supposed to be an exact fit for this helmet, and it works so much better than the chin curtain that comes with this helmet. So not the biggest deal, especially since me personally, I don't care about wind noise, especially on a track-oriented helmet. They're all going to be loud. That's just a part of how they're designed. But I think probably one of the biggest pain points that I have with this helmet just has to do with how it fits glasses. It's not the most glasses friendly helmet that I've ever worn. In fact, it's probably one of the least glasses friendly helmets that I've worn. Can I still fit my glasses in there? Yeah, you know, it fits in there fine, they stay in there fine, but in terms of getting them in and getting them out, it can be a little uncomfortable just getting the actual arms of the glasses up in there. Other people have stated that they don't have an issue with it, so it might just be an issue to do with how the pads interact with both my head shape and my ears. But as someone who exclusively wears glasses, it is just a little bit of a letdown, as opposed to other helmets. The Arise that I've worn over the years have fit my glasses exceptionally well with no issue, whereas this helmet, you just sort of have to squeeze them in and get the right angle. It's not anything too crazy, but it is just, you know, something to think about. Now, a couple other questions that I got had to do with the build quality and the durability of the helmet, and from what I can tell, I can't find any. You know, everything has stayed on. I haven't had issues with pieces falling off or things cracking or fading or anything like that, albeit I do take decent care of my helmets. They get stored inside. I don't really, you know, rough them up or mishandle them or anything like that. So in the year that I've had it, it's performed fine. The helmet has received rock chips every now and then from, you know, just general road debris, but I haven't found any issues with it to date. Everything has held up well. I haven't had any issues with anything on the helmet, and I know that's a big concern for a lot of people since this was the first run of the helmet, but in my personal experience, I haven't found any issues. It's been great. Now, I have also gotten other questions on what comes in the box or how easy is it to get accessories for the helmet, and this one I found is a bit of a complicated question to answer, mainly because where you get your helmet from is going to determine what comes in the actual box itself. In my case, I got everything in my box. when I got it. I got it through a local shop here in Tampa. I got the short spoiler, I got the long spoiler, I got a clear visor, I got a dark visor, I got a pin lock, I got the chin curtain, I got the chin spoiler, I got a helmet bag, like a dedicated bag, I got a bag for the visors. Yeah, I think that was it. I got all of those accessories, so everything that I would need came in the box. I didn't have to go out of my way to get a longer spoiler or a different visor or anything like that. I just had everything in the box. Now, other people online have given different accounts on what came in their box, and so I think a more important thing is to think about where you're getting your helmet from and looking through or asking, if you need to, what comes in the actual box itself, because I got my helmet for the standard MSRP price that you see online. The helmets are currently $999 for the flat colors, and then for a livery it is $1199. I got everything in the box for that price. So do some shopping around, see what you get from different places for different prices, because I really can't answer how to get accessories or how easy they are to get, just because I had everything with mine. I'll end the video on a bit of a fun note. One of the questions that I got on the helmet was, how well does the visor hold up against all the panties that women are throwing at me as I wear the helmet? Surprisingly enough, the safety rating on this visor does hold up, because all 0 of the panties that have been thrown at me have been shielded from. However, one thing to warn against, if you are going to be wearing this helmet or just motorcycling in general, you're going to have more attention from sweaty dudes than you ever will from women. But that about concludes it for me here. If you enjoyed the video and found it educational or at the bare minimum entertaining, please remember to like the video, subscribe, and let me know so I can make more content like this for you. If you want to find me on my other platforms, I am on Instagram at trash.works, and I am also on TikTok at TrashWerks. So anything you can do would be much appreciated, anything to help me escape the corporate hell cycle. But with that, if you have any other questions or want to know anything else about this helmet, be sure to leave a comment. I will get to them if I can, or possibly make a second follow-up video. But with that, I will catch you guys in the next one.